Thank you very much, Leslie. Firstly, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting for Wylde Green residents of the Wylde Green ward, hosted by myself. We're also joined by residents across Wylde Green, but also representatives from the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum, which always very kindly do a lot of work for local residents and represent themselves in terms of local interests. We've got an agenda, so we do have some people doing some presentations from Midlands Police, that's PSCO Shannon Duckers, and also Lucia Grady from Highways. And then there's an opportunity for residents to ask any questions at the end, but I hope to address most of the main issues on the ward, which form mostly around the changes to Wylde Green Pub. Delighted to be joined by Amy Millechope, who led the residents' campaign against the appeal, but more on that later. We then also have an update on the Ramada Hotel, which I appreciate is of concern to many residents, and I'll share what I can with you on that. Some planning issues, which I want to share with residents as well. And then we also have two town councillors who hopefully will be joining us later. That's Councillor Allen and Hodgins, who are your town councillor representatives. Before we formally get started, just want to make sure everybody aware that the meeting will be formally recorded. So please do turn off your cameras if you don't want to be viewed on YouTube and become celebrities at a later point. There is also a chat function, so please, on the very top of the toolbar there is a speech bubble with 2 lines. Please do feel free to click on it, add your comments or questions as we go through. It is a nice way of making sure that everybody has an opportunity to contribute. I appreciate that we are quite time restricted and there's a lot of people on the call as well. The only other thing, of course, is to please request everybody to turn their microphones off if they're not speaking. It's just to help to keep the background noise to a minimum. Okay, so without further ado, can I introduce PC Shannon Duckers, who is a wonderful PCSO. We've been on many tours around up and down the high street, keeping various near to others at bay. Shannon, are you with us?
Hi, I am. I'm here. So we also have as well today, not just got myself, we've got a new PCSO with us. So, although you can't see him, we've got Andy sitting next to me.
Hi everyone.
There you go, the voice from the gods on this unfortunate web chat where you can't see our faces. So yeah, so we're your kind of local police community support officers for the area. So we're the ones generally you might see up and down Wylde Green, around Warmley, kind of just stopping, having a chat with everyone, making sure any issues, concerns you've got that, you know what I mean, we're there to listen to them, try and help you as best as we can, or find out the information for you if we don't know it at the time. Just to kind of be that friendly face that you see around, or I hope it's friendly anyway, I try to be. So that's kind of pretty much it. So really, we're part of the neighbourhood team here at Sutton Coldfield. So we are still in Sutton Coldfield Police Station. I know a lot of people say, is it still there? Are you still open? We are still here. We've not got any plans to not be here. So we're working from Sutton Coldfield neighbourhood team. So there's ourselves and obviously our neighbourhood officers. Over the last couple of months, we've kind of had our officers kind of tasked with other kind of priorities, which has taken them a little bit off our neighbourhood, unfortunately. So we've had what we've been called demand. So since kind of April, we've had to provide officers to assist with response jobs due to there being such a high amount of kind of logs coming in with COVID, kind of that happening, restrictions lifting, everything kind of going a bit crazy in that little period. We had to kind of have extra resources there. So it took a little bit away from our neighbourhood team, but we're generally the faces that you will see kind of out and about. So usually we tend to kind of focus as West Midlands Police, our kind of leadership team kind of puts our priorities focusing on demand, which is kind of the logs dealing with the violence or weapons or anything like that. And like with the schools coming back, kind of again after COVID, where everything was a bit crazy and everyone went a bit haywire, didn't they, going back to school, we kind of had to do different things in the town. So we have had a lot of focus on the town, even though we cover kind of Wylde Green and Newhall. We have had to kind of focus on the town area as well, because I imagine you know that like McDonald's and stuff can cause a few issues with a lot of kids kind of gathering around there. So we've kind of had that to deal with. And then generally you'll see us in Wylde Green dealing with like beggars or kind of people that are kind of maybe sitting there that are saying they're homeless or things kind of like that. So generally we'll kind of engage with them, take some details, try and help them as best as we can. So if they are genuinely like homeless or they need some help with accommodation, we can help them kind of get that. So we can put street link referrals in and get people to kind of come out to them and try and find them, although it might be temporary for a night, or it might be, you know, I mean, something that's kind of just somewhere to be until they get somewhere more permanent. We try and do that. Or if it's kind of people that unfortunately aren't actually homeless, which we do kind of find a lot of, we'll do something called a CPW. So it's a community protection warning. So essentially we'll kind of write one up to any kind of persistent beggars or rough sleepers, and then that will kind of say to them like, right, okay, you've been doing this behaviour over this period of time. We are now formally warning you that if you continue, then you can end up with what we call a community protection notice. So then that is a kind of prosecutable notice. If you are then in the kind of area that we've defined you can't be begging in, you can be prosecuted for it. And it, you know what I mean, it kind of works in a way that they end up becoming kind of banned from that area ultimately, which is quite effective really. We do it with a lot of them, and I think I know at the minute we've only got, I think it's 14 CPWs, I think, for people kind of across us, which I know it sounds a lot, but kind of given the area that we cover of like Minworth, Warmley, Wylde Green, it's pretty kind of good goings really. So we also kind of work with other kind of agencies like offenders to rehab programs and things like that. So if there's any kind of substance abuse kind of within, like with the beggars or with anyone that's kind of rough sleeping and they want help with that, we can try and get them into rehab programs and things like that, try and kind of get them kind of out of it, get them excuse me, kind of a better kind of life really. So we work with them quite a lot. We also do joint visits and interventions with like Trident outreach teams and Street Link and things like that, and like the mental health and drug services, just to try and kind of really help them as much as we can, because ideally that's what we want to do. We don't just want to be going and moving them, we want to be able to go and offer them help and have them take that kind of help from us. We do the change into action leaflets as well. I'm pretty sure there's one in the forum board in Wylde Green. So we distributed those just to kind of say to people that if you want to help with the kind of situation with people begging or things like that, then to donate directly to the Change into Action charity rather than giving money to anyone that's kind of rough sleeping or begging, because at least giving it to the charity, you know kind of where it's going and you know that it is directly helping someone that needs it, whereas giving it to someone that's kind of sitting either begging or rough sleeping, sometimes there is those kind of substance abuses in play, and so your money isn't always going where you want it to go, you know what I mean? It might be funding something else, which obviously we don't really want to do. We want to get them the help that we kind of can. And again, like with Street Link, we work with Street Link a lot to try and help, or we ask people to make sure that if they are kind of having an issue with persistent beggars, like the shops in Wylde Green, most of them, if not all of them, have got one of my little contact cards. So they know that if they've got someone that is becoming a real issue, that they can drop me an email, or they can drop our Newell neighbourhood team an email just to kind of tell us that this person is becoming a real issue for them. And then, you know what I mean, we kind of know who we're looking for, where we need to be. It just kind of helps us out really, because obviously we can't, sometimes you're in Warmley and someone from Wylde Green or say we've got someone, and you know, I mean, you can't always get around quite so quickly. So we kind of try and ask the public as well to give as much information as they can, because that really does help us out. I think that's kind of everything for me at the minute. I've talked your ears off, sorry. Just kind of rambled through it all.
Not at all, it's a lot to cover. It is.
It's the first one of these meetings I've done as well, so even though I'm not face to face, I'm a little bit nervous.
All very friendly here, especially the ladies in uniform. I just want to thank as well all the work that you do. I know you offer very high visible presence along the high street. Your points that you made on begging and vagrancy is very well made. Unfortunately, they are taking advantage of our goodwill. There's a lot of people who do have supported accommodation. they have all the support, etc., available to them. Very few are genuinely homeless, and even if they are, there are many multiple charities that offer them a lot of support. The best thing to do, and to be brutal, is, you know, if you are feeling generous, as Shannon has said, do donate to the official charities, so you make sure that the support is going there. If you cut the support off at source, then it will quite simply stop coming to Wylde Green. And it's important to remember they actually make quite a lot of money sitting preying on our good supports, unfortunately. Does anybody have any questions for the officers? Philip.
What actually constitutes begging? Because a lot of the people I see just sit there with a cup in front of them. Is that begging, or do they have to verbally ask for money or things?
So yeah, so even just sitting like that, we would consider that as being in a position to beg. So sitting there with a cup, you haven't got to be kind of physically asking for it. Because you're kind of sitting there with that cup, we would say you're sitting in a position to beg. And so that would be the kind of person that we would be kind of taking details from and looking to move on and to help.
Thank you very much.
There's a question coming from the chat. Details of official charities that support the homeless in Sutton Coldfield. Shannon, do you have details of any charities that actually support the homeless in Sutton Coldfield? You mentioned one.
Just having a look on my notes. I know we've got the Change into Action one, which is the one that that's the kind of biggest one that we will generally promote.
Citywide, is it?
As far as I'm aware, it is, yes. It's the kind of one that the police generally will support. So they call it an alternative giving kind of scheme. But that's the one that generally we kind of have got behind, and that's the one that we'll kind of endorse.
Sure. I know that the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum is doing some work as well to support this. Pat, you got your hand up. If you are trying to speak, you just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, right. Thank you, and congratulations, Alex.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Cindy. Yes, we have posters in Wylde Green promoting StreetLink as a charity that you can send your money to. There's quite a lot in the posts in the shops around Wylde Green. I think there's one on the notice board too. So if you do want somewhere specific that we've used before, and we're raising money for StreetLink this year by selling stars for our Christmas tree, which is going to be put outside Emmanuel Church. There's a little carol service and a lighting up ceremony on Sunday, and we're selling stars there, and sale of those will go towards StreetLink.
Thank you very much, Pat. Okay. And for those who don't know, Pat is the secretary for the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum. So that's the resident association that covers the ward, and they do excellent work in terms of the Christmas tree that we did. Was it 2 years ago, Pat? That we
did one last year. We're doing one last year. We're doing one this year as well. We're buying one the week of the 25th, something like that, and we're putting it in situ with the help of the Sutton Town Rangers on Terry Wood. And there's going to be a lighting up ceremony on Sunday the 28th at 7:30.
Fantastic. You can give that another plug at the very end. And that's at Emmanuel Church on the Birmingham Road.
That's Emmanuel Church, yes.
Thank you. Ian's also asked a question around parking around schools. So this is unfortunately a perennial problem that we have. Double yellow line parking in front of the zigzags, blocking driveways, etc. I know the officers will have a view, but from the council side, of course, it's incredibly frustrating. Shannon, are you able to come on that, please?
Yeah, so it's the same for us, really. It's an issue that we do kind of get asked about a lot, and I kind of double yellows we don't necessarily kind of deal with, because not 100% sure why, but that comes under a council kind of issue for double yellows. But like zigzags and things like that, we can ticket for. Obviously, I know you're kind of saying there that you don't normally see anyone patrolling this. We do try and get out as often as we can to patrol our schools, either in the morning or the afternoon. Just kind of on our area alone, we've got 7 primary schools. just on us. So obviously before kind of Andy joined me, that was just me trying to get around 7 primary schools, which, you know what I mean, it's quite a task in itself. But generally we will try and get around and patrol as many as we can. Or the schools, again, have got my contact details, so if they're having like this school, what's it called, Holy Cross Catholic School over by kind of Berryfields, they were having problems with a kind of persistent parent who was just causing real problems for them, and they emailed me with her kind of details, and then we can do things from there. So even if we can't necessarily get to those schools, sometimes the schools have got my details as well, so they can get in touch with me. So we try and kind of work it as best as we can in that way.
Thank you. I know it's a difficult answer, and it's something unfortunate that we've seen across the whole of the town. In front of schools, we normally find there's a surge come September when new parents desperately trying to drop all their children off at the start of term right at the school's doorstep. And it's unfortunately an issue that will always occur at the start of September until parents settle down, until schools are able to properly educate the new parents around practices, etc., and health and safety of their own children. So this is something that we always struggle with, inconsiderate drivers, blocking driveways, etc. If there are any particular roads that you have of any immediate concern, do email me. I do my best to try and get officers or council officers to patrol, especially if it's double yellow, if it's blocking driveways, or if it's around schools, try and get the school to take firm action on parents. But unfortunately, it is inconsiderate behaviour. And I always say to residents, the vast majority of my casework is from people generally just being inconsiderate. If everyone behaved a little bit more sensibly, the whole town would be so much of an easier place to deal with. Any other questions for the officers? Tony.
Hi. Just the point about parking and schools. One of the groups I'm involved with is Eco Sutton, and we had a meeting about a week ago with highway consultants who have been commissioned by the town council. It may be something that's raised by the town councillors later on. It was a really good meeting, and we did a little bit of research before it. And there is an aspect of travel plans, active travel plans, called school travel plans. And there's a methodology there to encourage schools and colleges to adopt travel plans. That's active travel plans, i.e., using cycles or walking in a safe and controlled way. That's something, using the consultancy work that the town council has commissioned, could have benefits across the board, really. It's in what's becoming almost a very serious situation, certainly where I live on Pilkington Avenue, with Sutton Girls' School down the road, and post-COVID and the reluctance to use public transport. There's real problems with informal parking. So school travel plans is one aspect of a strategy to deal with the problem across the town as a whole.
Thank you. Any other questions for Shannon? Philip.
Yeah, mine might be a bit strange, but it's something that I'd like to know about, and that is where the threat level has now gone to, severe for terrorist attacks. What do the police consider could happen within, say, Sutton Coldfield, because it is theatre, we use some of the community halls. Are there any likelihood of things happening with those? I know it's a bit out of the things, but it would be interesting to know.
It's a bit of a tricky one, if I'm honest, because I don't really have a kind of a proper answer for you, if I'm honest with you. I know we've kind of raised the threat level, which I'm kind of assuming has come off the back partly of the whole Liverpool incident, with the taxi in the hospital and stuff. But as for kind of Sutton Coldfield as a general area, I'm not 100% sure. I don't believe there's any kind of real worry regarding Sutton as an area. I think it's just kind of overall as a whole, just to kind of err on the side of caution. I will try and find some more out for you though. If I can grab an email or something in the chat, I will happily find some more out for you and drop you an email.
Thank you. If you do drop me an email, I can always share it on the social media across Sutton Coldfield as well, and in the Sutton Coldfield page.
Just leave it on here like that.
Thank you. Harry.
Can you hear me okay?
We can,
Sorry, can you hear me?
we can hear you loud and clear.
It's a question for the police officer, actually. What is the penalty for parking on double yellow lines? Hello, did you hear me? Hello?
Sorry, just unmuting our mic here. So for double yellow lines, we generally, as the police, don't deal with double yellow lines. For as far as kind of we're told, it comes under a council kind of issues to deal with. So we wouldn't ticket for double yellows. We will ticket for like obstruction or parking on zigzags or kind of things like that. But we don't actually deal with double yellow lines.
I've just got the feeling that parking on a double yellow line used to be an endorsable offence.
No, parking double yellow lines is always a civil offence as opposed to an endorsable one. So many people will know that I do sit as a magistrate, and the double yellow lining is a council-led operation. I think it's a £60 fine, if memory serves. So only if officers are there in attendance.
So what's the difference between parking on a double yellow line and parking on a single yellow line?
So the zigzag is what the officers are referring to.
No. Sorry, Alex, I'm not talking about the zigzag. I know all about the zigzags. I had the pleasure of watching a policeman book somebody on the zigzags in Bolmere once. So no, I'm asking the question, what is the difference between parking on a single yellow line and parking on a double yellow line?
I think it's around waiting times. But Harry, the difficulty is we put some double yellow lines outside multiple schools, down Station Road, also around Sutton Girls. And the difficulty is, of course, if the driver is in the car that's part of the double yellow line, they can quite easily move, etc. There's also what's called a reasonable waiting time that council officers are obliged to allow vehicles to be there. I think it's around 10 minutes or so, during which point, if they are still there afterwards, in which then it becomes a buckle offence. So it's a very frustrating situation because, as you say, many residents assume that the police are responsible, and if we send the police over, then they move them on. Equally, a lot of motorists believe that it's police officers. So we do find a police presence around schools and on double yellow lines does help. But as I say, if there's any particular hotspots, if you want to send me the road, I'll always try and get parking officials from Birmingham City Council over. So we did do a monitoring operation around Hollyfast Road, for example, around the Lane Shopping Centre, just to try and ease the issue for local residents. But unfortunately, the issue is always, once the traffic warden moves on, unfortunately, the motorists, and the issue does normally return.
Okay, I'll just make one more comment. You mentioned parking around Holy Cross School just now. I actually know this area quite well, and there's a road called the Burnham Road, which is up Springfield Road. And what they've actually done, I think the council have done it, have stopped cars parking down the Burnham Road, which is the approach to Holy Cross. I think it's Holy Cross. And it's caused an absolute disaster, really, because if you drive down Springfield Road now, all the cars that used to park safely out of the way in the Burnham Road, causing chaos, no doubt, is now causing chaos on the main Springfield Road, which is obviously causing a problem to the traffic moving along Springfield Road in the morning. So just a general note, actually shutting up roads to stop parents parking in there can cause more trouble than actually the previous situation.
Yes.
We have more issues, children actually getting out of the car onto a main Springfield Road instead of getting out of the car onto the Burnham Road.
It's a good point you make, Harry, and what we see a lot with planning applications as well, or residents asking for double yellow lines, etc., is that it does tend to move the issue further down the road as opposed to solve the situation, which, as I say, is mostly around inconsiderate parking. Also, double yellow lines are quite good until you realise actually they still have to be enforced, as many residents unfortunately find, and they do come at great cost as well to council. So it is a wholly unsatisfactory answer, and I do appreciate that. So I'm sorry about not being able to give you a firm answer, but we do what we can with the resources that we have, and any certain areas, especially around the shops, we do try and monitor as best we can. Okay, I'm just mindful of time.
I'll go now. With the price fuel going up, I think the problem will become less and less.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon, thank you very much for your time this evening. Appreciate it. And can you pass on my thanks to Sergeant Francie as well for all the work that they do behind the scenes?
That's a pleasure. It's been lovely getting to kind of speak with everyone, and I'll pass your thanks on to her when she's back in.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. So next on the agenda, we have Lucy O'Grady, who is from Kier. So they are the operators for the highways contract that Birmingham City Council have. So Kier manage, I believe, repairs and the systems across the city's road network. So I'll hand over to Lucy for an update and any questions. Oh.
There we go. Thanks, Councillor Yip. I mean, yeah, some of you may recognise my face. I've been looking after the maintenance issues across the city. I should say I'm the customer services manager for Kier, but I did have a previous Amy badge on many moons ago, and we have all transitioned now over to Kier, and we all have a new shiny company to be working for. However, the maintenance activities and business as usual has carried on for us. It was a seamless transition. So we look after, on behalf of the City Council, pretty much everything you see when you walk out of your doorstep. So the roads, the pavements, the highways, trees, street lights, the gullies in the carriageways, your traffic signals, pretty much everything that you come across on a day-to-day basis. Since Kier took over the contract in April 2020, we've embarked on a huge resurfacing programme. So you should have seen we covered in the Wylde Green ward in particular, Broadfields. Councillor Yip petitioned us very hard for Broadfields, and that's been a success. That now has a lovely shiny new surface. Vesey Road was completed in July and August of this year, and we have Maney Hill coming up, one of our larger schemes. That's coming up early next year. Maney Hill is, as I say, it's one of our largest schemes. The only other schemes that outweigh Maney Hill in terms of duration are Bristol Road, Kingsby Road, and Tyburn Road, and then Maney Hill. We're going to be on there for around 27 days. It's a full excavation of the entire stretch, the entire length, and then it's a full new surface going down. So it's going to take us, just best part of a full month out there. All affected residents will be written to in advance, and all neighbouring roads will be written to in advance. Advanced warning signs will go up, and there will be diversions in place. I don't know if this makes much difference to anyone or not, but it will be night work on Maney Hill, simply because it is a strategic route for Sutton Coldfield. So to close it during the daytime would cause traffic chaos. So the decision's been taken to do that work at night, where we'll cause least disruption. But unfortunately, if you had those very imminently close to it, it won't be particularly great. But we will have noise restrictors on the vehicles and things like that. Anything that we can do to keep noise to a minimum, we will. And that's the only resurfacing. As I say, we've done Vesey Road, we've done Broadfields, Maney Hill's coming up. And then by the time we finish Maney Hill, our new resurfacing programme will probably be ready to just about come out. So that's everything that we have. We also have a huge maintenance program. So Kier spent the whole of 2020 and the first part of 2021 catching up on a lot of defects that had been left behind that we had inherited from the previous service providers. So there's been a big catch up on trying to get potholes, pedestrian guardrails, street furniture, benches, street lights, getting all of those repaired. We still have a little way to go on that. We haven't quite caught up yet because, of course, our inspectors are still out every day finding new work as well as trying to complete the old backlog. But we're very much getting there now. So it's you should be seeing the road network in a much better condition than it has been for the last few years. And the resurfacing programme, as I say, is carrying on with a vengeance. So not just across the Wylde Green ward, across all the 69 wards across the city, we have a presence in every single one of them at the moment.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Just on the Mainley Hill Road, so I do want to thank the patience of residents on that. It's been petitioned quite hard over quite a long period of time, and I've certainly pushed very hard for the whole road resurfaced as opposed to patches. What you may remember happened in Wardfields Road is that the middle stretch was done, or across the length of the road, that the middle strip would be done. And we find, unfortunately, comes up quite quickly. So it was one of the requests that we made as local councillors on residents' behalf to try and get the whole road resurfaced. And I think it's quite special that we've got that road done. A huge amount of resource and investment is going into our single member ward. But it does show in terms of the petitioning, and if residents do let me know, and if enough residents let us know which roads they would like done, roads like Broadfield, Vesey Road, for example, will eventually get done. But I just hope everyone will bear with us with the patience. Lucy, just two questions from me. So I'm mindful that there's a lot of potholes, unfortunately, still dotted around. I know that we flagged them up to you and you do your best to come out. Does Kier still have the guidelines around, of course, to do the temporary fix, and then you come back to do the permanent fix where you actually take it out as a square and then fill it in? And the second one around trees. So lots of residents expressed concern to me around the tree in front, whether it's died and then a replanting. So normally I believe it's a 1-for-1, not necessarily on the same spot, because of course if the previous one hasn't taken, there may be issues with that immediate vicinity around not letting that tree take root. So I wanted to speak on those 2 points, please.
Yeah, no problem. So you are absolutely right. Temporary repairs, we do get quite a few inquiries about these. So we have an emergency response. Well, we have 6 emergency response teams on shift at any one time, and those guys are well, the clues in the title, they are our immediate response. If we get inquiries in that hit certain trigger points for us, that we consider them to be dangerous. So if it's on a strategic route, or if it's, you know, on a zebra crossing, there's lots of different things. And either a member of public calls it into the Birmingham City, to the contact centre at the City Council. They may log it online with the council, or one of our inspectors. We have 20 highway inspectors out in the network all day, every day. If any of those call it in, the immediate response team have 2 hours to get to that defect and temporarily repair it. So that could be pedestrian guardrail that's been hit in a car crash. It could be, as Councillor Yip said, a pothole that we temporarily fill. So they don't always look the prettiest, temporary repairs, especially if they're on a high-speed road, or if it may look like, you know, that we've just patted tarmac into a hole. What happens with those, we then have 35 days to get back out there. Put in that 35 days gives us the time to put in a notice to close a lane, or to close the whole road if we need to, and do a full permanent repair. So we do temporary repairs, and we do them within 2 hours. If it's not deemed an urgent or immediate repair, our highway inspectors will go out within 5 days of receiving the inquiry, and they will categorise it on a risk matrix. Our risk matrix is to national standards. And in fact, the one that Birmingham City Council use is better than national standards. So we're actually above, and we handle more than the national standards say that we need to. And those ones, we have a 12-week maintenance programme, and at maximum, a repair should never enter that 12-week programme more than twice. So it shouldn't take us more than 6 months to complete the repair. If it's not in the immediate quarterly programme, it should be in the following month.
That's helpful. Thank you, Lucy. And to try and preempt some of the questions, to those who've got their hands up, please, if you want to type your question in the chat box, does make it a little bit easier. But to try and preempt some of them
really quickly, because you mentioned trees.
Thank you.
So with the trees, you are right. It's a 1-for-1 policy, and we will never remove a healthy tree. The city council city council policy is we will never remove a healthy tree. So we don't remove for some of the conkers falling, for sap falling, for large branches or for views or anything like that. We won't ever remove a healthy tree. Tree may be considered for removal as part of a drop curb application, but as Councillor Yip says, for every tree that we take out, we replace either in the exact same location or in the nearest possible location, and absolutely within the same ward.
Thank you very much, Lucy. To those who've got their hands up, please do post your question in the chat if you feel able to. Just to preempt some of the questions which I know may be coming is the definitions for a road, the criteria that it has to meet in order for a repair or a resurfacing, and also pavements as well. So I know a lot of pavements have been flagged as trip hazards, etc., especially around the paving slabs that unfortunately come up with roots, etc. Could you speak very quickly on that, and then we'll take questions?
Yeah, so the inspectors that we have are all, they're LANTRA trained, so it's a national standard again. And it's really hard for us to go through the safety matrix because it's very much dependent on a pothole that might be, I don't know, 30 mil or 20 mil or 30 mil in depth in the middle of a carriageway that's going to cause, it's in the middle of a wheel track, so the wheels aren't going to go over it, is not going to cause too much disruption. Whereas if that 20 or 30 mil pothole was on the side of the carriageway in the double yellow lines where a cyclist may hit it, the inspector will categorise them differently. So we don't have, although we do have measurements and millimetres that we will consider dangerous, it's all very much based on the area, on what's seen. As I say, a zebra crossing, sort of defects on a zebra crossing near a school, in cycle lanes or in a cycle track will be considered a higher risk than the same sort of pothole in the middle of a dual carriageway with not anywhere near wheel track lines. So it's really hard for us to go through the millimetres and measurements. The other thing we don't generally replace for is cracked slabs. So we get a lot of inquiries in saying, well, the slabs, they look a mess and they're cracked. If those slabs are stable, they're not rocking and they are not dipping or causing any trip hazards, we generally replace for aesthetic cracks. It has to be that the contract that we have is a safety contract with the City Council. We will keep the streets and the carriageways safe, and that's how our inspectors will categorise the defects. So it is very much dependent on where it is, how long it's been there. There's a whole host of things. The matrix is absolutely massive, and there's all sorts of the variations change, which is why our systems categorise that. They have a whole checklist, and once they've checked their boxes, the system will calculate, right, that's an immediate 2-hour hazard, or you've got 12 weeks to deal with that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lucy. Don't want to keep the mayor of our royal town, Sutton, Coldfield and Wylde Green resident, Terry Wood, waiting. So Terry.
Thank you, Alex. 2 questions, one about trees, one about roads. There's been a tree that's been dead in Cambridge Avenue for probably 2 years now. So the question is, how long does it take to replace a tree? Do you use it by season or what do you do there? And the second question is Springfield Road in Warmley on your list? It's in a pretty dreadful condition. I have written to Severn Trent about the flooding down there, but they say it's the road condition that's causing the flooding. So any comments would be grateful, please.
I don't know about the specific tree on Cambridge Avenue. If we know a tree is, the policy for removal is dead, diseased or dying.
It's dead.
If we know that it's
2 years.
Yeah, if we know it's dead, diseased or dying, it's highly, it's on highway land?
It's on highway land. It's on the corner of Cambridge Avenue and Green Lanes, and it's but it's a small one. It was replaced about 2.5 years ago and never took.
Okay. I mean, we're normally very, very quick with getting those out because we are at risk, and we carry the risk. Kier, as the maintenance providers, carry that risk. So I'll get someone out to take a look at that, and we'll report back via Councillor Yip. Springfield Road, I do hear about Springfield Road regularly. It's not on this programme, is all I can say. Whether it makes it onto the next programme, it remains to be seen. But it's not at the moment due anything.
Who makes the decisions on putting it on the programme?
So the programmes are based on road condition. It's not based on I said that it's based on road condition. There is a section about the volume of complaints and the number of complaints and petitions and councillor requests. So there's a section for that your councillors can influence. But the large section is based on the condition, and we take cause. So we have an independent company that will come out and tell us what's happening underneath the road surface. We do get a bit of pushback on that quite a lot, because if we resurface a road that people don't think needs doing, but actually just 10 millimetres under that surface it's crumbling and isn't going to last another 6 months and could cause us major issues, we have to go out there and get it done. The same sort of thing with skid resistance. So if the skid resistance of a road has gone, we carry out skid resistor tests with a big truck that carries like a triangle thing. And if that's swinging and there's no grip or skid resistance on a road, we have to resurface and get the traction back and put some skid resistance down. But again, that could happen on a road with absolutely no potholes on it whatsoever. Those are always really tricky for me to try and explain to people why we're resurfacing it, but it is those reasons. But Springfield at the moment, there's nothing for it.
Thank you, Lucy. I think you need some better councillors over in Warmley Minworth there, Terry, perhaps. I'm only pulling your leg, mate.
Thank you for that good advice, Alex.
There's 2 questions on the group chat. So just to quickly answer Philip's question around leaf sweeping. So that's a council matter. If you want to report the road up to me, and I'll forward it on to Birmingham City Council. They are just starting that up now. So if you let me know, we'll do what we can on that. Ian's asked a quick question around Maney Hill. We assume that you are linking up with utilities, so it's not like the road and it's going to get dug up next week to put in a waterworks.
The utility companies frustrate us as much as they frustrate anyone else. Yes, we do have a programme. We share our programme with the utility companies. They're aware of it well in advance, and we apply something called a Section 58 notice. Once we've done a resurface of any road, we put the Section 58 notice on, which means they can't dig it up or change it for standard practice for 3 years after it's been laid. We've got a problem on 2 of our new surfaces now that have not long gone down, and utilities have gone in and dug them up because they've gone in on emergency works. If there's any kind of emergency down there and Severn Trent need to get to a pipe or Cadent need to get to a gas pipe, we can't stop that, and we shouldn't stop that. So it is really frustrating, and we share your frustrations when we see a nice new surface being torn up, but there will be a really legitimate reason, because we audit them on that as well. So if our Section 58 notice is broken, it can only be broken for an emergency. They can't go down there and do standard maintenance work or upgrades that they've known about for a long time.
Okay, I'm mindful we've got 6 hands and 3 minutes. If we can get quick answers and quick questions, if we can, please. If I call Peter and Tony, if you ask both your questions at the same time, please, and get a response from Lucy.
Okay, that's going to be tricky at the same time. Okay, a question, again, go back to active travel work that's going on at the moment. I appreciate your safety-based maintenance contractor, but very, very concerned about footways and pedestrian safety and pedestrian routes, given the amount of cars parked on the footway. And one of the things was suggested to the active travel people was to look on a safety basis at drop curbs and continuity of drop curbs for the infirm, aged, people with children. So it's really looking at the footways in terms of safety and continuity.
Okay.
And Peter? So Peter, if you're trying to speak, you need to unmute yourself. But just to answer the drop curb, so that drop
Okay.
curb.
The drop curb and active travel, you would need your local engineer. So us as Kier, we look after anything that's already there, and we'll maintain anything that's already there. Any major changes to the network is the local engineer.
Yeah.
Peter, are you able to come in? You've got your hand up, Peter. If you're trying to speak, you need to unmute yourself. The glories of technology. I'm afraid I would if I could unmute you from this end, but I can't. Do you mind if I move on to Judy Milson while we're waiting for you, if you can, please, Judy? Judy, if you're trying to speak, you need to mute yourself. You have your hand raised for a question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. If you're able to let me know about the tarmacking possibility, would it be up to you, or can you put me onto who it might be up to? Down by Windley Lake, very close to one of the entrances to Sutton Park, there is a sports pavilion at one side and Windley Lake at the other side. And there is a car park area by the sports pavilion, and I'm wondering who is in charge of tarmacking there, as it's so awful for any disabled people wanting to park in that area.
It won't be public highway. It won't be highway land. It might be a city council car park. I don't know. I don't know the specific car park, but we don't look after car parks.
Thank you.
Right.
If you forward that to your local councillor, I think that sits outside the ward, doesn't it? But if you contact your local councillor on that, they may be able to look at it.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Harry, Peter, if either of you want to come in. Peter.
Yeah, my name is Peter Hale. Two matters with Hawthorne Road, Wylde Green. Lamppost number 6 has been burning 24/7 for several weeks. It needs switching off. The other one is regarding a tree in the pavement between number 61 and 63. There's an awful lot of growth at the bottom. It's now getting to about 4 feet high, and there must be about 20 upward growing shoots that need trimming off.
Okay, got those. The day burner, we do have a project at the moment. There's about 10,000 lights burning at the moment during the day. It is a planned activity. We are aware of them. We're currently getting round to all of them to change the, we've turned them on purpose. We've turned them on so that we can identify them, so that we can change the telecells on them, so that we can change the controllers. They're on a really low emittance. And once we get control, at the moment we don't have controls of those lights, so they're either permanently on or permanently off. So we've had to put them permanently on, and we are frantically going around the city to all 10,000 of those, changing the telecells. So we do know about them, and they will go off once we've changed the controller.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate you directing Lucy to the exact lamppost. It's very helpful, especially
It is helpful.
Say what house number it's out or which number of lamppost is, and that really does help us. Otherwise, I have to go visit and find and then report, and sometimes it's wrong and it goes around the circle again. Harry, last question for Harry, please.
Never get me there.
Yeah, sorry. A gentleman mentioned Springfield Road and the problems with Springfield Road. And again, it's not in Wylde Green. I actually do live in Wylde Green, but I do know this area quite well. And there's a major flooding problem in Springfield Road. And it's all to do with the storm water not being able to get out down the sewerage pipes. They're called sewage pipes, although that's 25-year-old storm water not getting into the field. And I take your point about the local councillors, because quite frankly, this is a real major situation and no action has been carried out whatsoever after a resident I know who does live on Springfield Road has made requests for action to be taken. And this is a major issue because the flooding is unbelievable. It's coming down Laburnum Road and it's damaging the road. It'll actually lift the grating, the surge cover. So I take your point about action down there, Alex, and nothing has been done. And it's quite
if I could just move the conversation on, if I can, Harry. I think that's also, I have actually reported the flooding on that myself as well, and I know that City and the town councillors have done what they can to report that. But if I just leave that with you, Lucy, to take away, if you can, please, just to highlight the urgency on that, please.
I've got
very quickly, if I can, please.
Alex, can I just come back on that one? I'll take exception to that. I've written to Severn Trent. I've met the residents down in Springfield Road. I've spoken to Carl Randall about it. So to say that councillors have done nothing about it is simply untrue.
Yes,
I can show you the letters I've written if you want me to. And
Terry, I was at pains just to correct the narrative on that. I know Ken and David have flagged that issue up on Springfield Road. I myself have as well, because I'm a resident officially in Warmley. So I know people are very aware of it, and of course local councillors have been doing what they can, but sometimes I hope residents appreciate these matters are somewhat out of our hands, especially when trying to work out whose responsibility it is, etc.
Is it Springfield Road in I'm just checking that on our programme. Is it Springfield Road, Sutton Reddycat?
Yes, it was Sutton Reddycat ward.
It is on the programme. It will be resurfaced.
So I think it falls under Warmley Minworth electoral. But I think
it does. That's why I haven't got it flagged for this meeting, but it is due a resurface. It's on the current programme.
Thank you. It's a bit frustrating when we're sort of Wylde Green matters, but of course you've got a different setup because you allocate it as a different ward, don't you? Okay. Very quickly, Lee, if you can, please.
I must come back. I must come back on that because I have talked to the councillors, other people have talked to the councillors. It may not be the council's fault, but the basic situation is that this flooding has been going on for years.
Thank you, Harry. I think the point's been made, Harry.
We're doing it.
We'll not make it.
Harry, I think the point's been made, but also it's good to know that it's being resurfaced. I'm also paid to point out there isn't actually a road in the ward, so I don't want to keep it to ward matters. Lee, very quickly, if you can, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Sorry for my late attendance. Springfield Road, I was going to take Lucy on that one, but unfortunately she came back with it, and I'm glad you came back with it. And with the gentleman who's talking about the water that is down there, this council has done so much since they've been in office to get that sorted out, but it's out of the town council's hand. They've done their job, they can't do anymore. I'm very glad that you've picked up on Springfield Road, because I was just going to say that the mayor mentioned it, of which was really bugging me, and then you said it wasn't, but you come back, it's there. I'm grateful for that. Do the water and we'll be happy. But the town council is doing their job as much as they can.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Just to point out that it isn't a road in Wylde Green, and residents are dealing with it, plus it's being resurfaced. I think that very much sorts the issue out. Thank you very much. Lucy, thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day. I know it's an extra responsibility for you to come and do these board meetings, but I do find it exceptionally helpful, and I think a lot of residents have benefited just from your insight, but also an idea around the complexities that sit behind an email and request. So thank you very much indeed.
Am I okay to feed any specifics, like Cambridge Avenue back through yourself?
Of course, absolutely. If you let me know, and I'll cascade it down to residents. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
So apologies for cutting residents off. I'm very mindful of the time, and of course we've got a lot to get through. I think we're heading into the bulk of the meeting, which I know a lot of residents have some concerns over. Item 5 on the agenda is around the Wylde Green Pub update. So if I can trouble Leslie to start sharing her screen, if you can, please. There's a number of updates that I want to try and let residents know. As you may very well be aware, is that back in the day, the Wylde Green Pub suddenly closed down. Various applications went forward for it to be turned into a rather substantial. It's not this one, I think it's the next one. So it should be down as WG1, or WG Pub 1. So a number of planning applications went forward some time ago in 2019 for it to be demolished and turned into 57, I believe, possibly more actually, extra care home provision. So this was successfully blocked and refused by council officers after quite a substantial petition led by Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum residents, myself, etc. So we're very glad that that got rejected. Unfortunately, planners have an option of taking this to appeal to an independent inspectorate. Leslie, if you're able to find the next leaflets, so this will be, I think it's labelled as WG Pub 2. That's what I've labelled the document as. So the applicants managed to successfully appeal it at this stage. One of the residents who led the appeal on behalf of directly affected residents is Amy. Amy, if you're there.
Yes,
so,
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Everything that you've done as well in terms of leading the effort, and you spoke at the planning meeting. Is that correct, on behalf of residents?
Yeah, so I spoke at a couple of the planning meetings and more recently at the appeal, actually. So, of course, I'm disappointed with the inspectorate's decision to allow the development at such scale. In his final report, he does frequently mention that, you know, he realises that it's a very large building, but says that as it's surrounded by lots of greenery and trees, etc., that it would soften the appearance, and this is really partly why the appeal was successful. Going forward, of course, there's not much that can be done about it, but I do think it would have been difficult, really, for the inspectorate to not have granted permission, because Birmingham City Council had said on many occasions that it didn't actually breach their own local planning guidance, which is called Places for Living 2001. And my thoughts around this really are, if a building that's 3 and 4 stories high on an elevated area of ground can be built next to 2-story residential properties, like a normal, you know, 2-story house that many of us will live in a green and leafy residential area, then it begs the question as to whether the Places for Living guidance set by Birmingham City Council is fit for purpose. It's outdated, and really, does the problem lie with the fact that it doesn't stipulate whether it's a commercial property or residential property? Because ultimately, the developer said, we want to build this. Birmingham City Council said, we think this is too big, but yet their policy doesn't, their policy, you know, it's not law, it's just guidance, doesn't say that. And the worry is that developers will do the same in the future. And if you couple this with a council who, I'm not sure how Birmingham City Council would feel about this, but, you know, perhaps they would be afraid to refuse planning permission to big developers in the future for the risk of it going to appeal. If you combine those two issues together, we might find that this sort of development continues throughout Sutton Coldfield, each time getting bigger and bigger, which is a real worry.
Thank you very much. Leslie, are you able to put onto the screen the third document, WG Pub 3, if you can, please? So we can see the planning application for one of the other matters. So just while we're waiting for that, I do want to thank Amy. She's done a huge amount trying to really dig through the detail of the planning applications, pick out weaknesses, and represent residents on this vital issue, which is going to affect many residents. As I say, unfortunately, because the application was lost on this appeal to an independent inspectorate, then there are no further grounds, and I have explored this to see if there's anything else that we can do. Unfortunately, it seems our options are somewhat exhausted. So what remains for us, and I know Amy will be doing her best with us and residents would be to make sure that they comply with the conditions that have been laid down. And this would be kind of the next stage in making sure that we hold them to account on what they promised. But in terms of Amy's points around the wider issues with Birmingham City Council, and many of you will know the difficulties that we've had in objecting to planning applications, many residents signing petitions, going to a lot of effort, putting forward very valid arguments, which unfortunately get overridden, or as you say, Amy, they do get granted at the council level. So it is incredibly frustrating for us. It's always for us as residents to maintain an eternal vigilance, really, to make sure that planning applications which aren't appropriate and we feel would disrupt our lives and the community are vigorously opposed. Philip, you've got your hand up, sir.
Yes, what I wanted to know was, I thought the government, the Conservative government, actually had introduced some rules which allowed local authorities to be the arbiter of planning, so that it was what people wanted, not what big business wanted.
Yes, we did, and unfortunately, it seems as you know, as we've outlined, because they've managed to go to an independent inspectorate, they've maybe find a way to bypass that. So, as you say, Birmingham City Council, we have our own policy procedures, as Amy's highlighted, but it's a wider concern around if, as Amy said, if applications are being rejected at this high level, then it does kind of encourage developers to put in rather contentious, shall we say, applications at this council level for them to be appealed and then one on further appeal. And it's incredibly frustrating for us. As you say, I always feel that, you know, as your elected representatives, we should have, you know, a larger say, a stronger say. In effect, my voice is only as equal to yours. And then in terms of the number of residents who oppose it, I think it should carry a lot more weight than it does. The only point which I'd add on that is that we do have a ward plan, which the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum and I together, we put together, and it's supposed to have some impact and say in local planning matters, for example, the plethora of nursery homes, care homes, nurseries, etc., that's come up and down the Birmingham Road. And it's frustrating for us that this document hasn't been given the proper weight in terms of consultation in planning that I feel it should do. So these are things that we are looking at, and I know Amy and I will be working very closely together to keep an eye on this development and any further ones. I also want to place on record my thanks to the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum. So Pat especially, she trawls through the hundreds of planning applications that we get every month, many planning applications, and she always teases out the more contentious ones and flags them up for me to have further insight. But if residents do come across any applications, please do let me know. I will try and dig further into it, but I hope you appreciate the volume of work means that it's quite difficult for me to look at every extension, every planning application, every tree, for example, that comes across my way. So I'm very grateful to the forum for that. Does anybody have any questions on the Wylde Green Neighbourhood, the Wylde Green Pub, before we move on? Thank you. Leslie, if you're able to, if you can hear me, if you're able to advance the screens, if you can at all. There's a number of planning applications I just want to go through. Can you hear me there, Leslie?
Yeah, I can. It's okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. So can I just check the residents can see the planning application for Warmley Golf Club? Is that right? Fantastic. So just to speed through a number of applications before we move on to the other item. There are a number of applications, and as I said, we get quite a large number. So I just wanted to share with you a few. The Warmley Golf Club have successfully managed to get a planning application approved for an extension to Clubhouse, and this is something which we've broadly supported. This will add new facilities to the club, and I do hope the residents will support that. And if there are any issues coming forth from that, please do let me know. But broadly welcome that. I think would be a good addition to the club. If you're able to move to the next one, please, Leslie. To bold phrase, next slide, please.
Can you see that one?
So this would be planning 2. So it would be the next document.
2. Can you see it?
So, not yet, no. So in front of the lanes, residents may have noticed that there's been 2 electric charging points that's been installed. So this has actually been installed onto public highways. So again, the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum flagged this up as a concern. I believe it's been taken down and reinstated, but this gives you an idea about the range of applications that do come forward to us. Leslie, while you're trying to find that, I'll move on to planning 4, I think is the next one.
It's taking quite a while to load at this end.
While we're waiting for that, there is a application for a 5-bed HMO to be installed on number 50 Florence Road. So this is causing some concern to local residents because we feel that it may set a precedent in turning what is quite a strongly residential road into a HMO area in terms of other applicants and landlords trying to turn their properties into HMOs. So I do want to urge residents, if you are affected or if you have similar concerns, to please do find the planning application. The number is 2021, so that's 2021/08083/PA. I'll type that in the chat when I've got a section, when I've got a minute. And please do comment on that. So I think there's some concerns that's been raised in terms of what may happen very quickly in terms of Florence Road. Just on Florence and Broadfields Road, we are trying to get some road changes on Florence Road, where the Florence Road junction meets Birmingham Road. So it is my intention, and we've been consulting residents quite widely on this unofficially, is to try and close it off on the Chester Road, Florence Road junction from traffic turning from Chester Road, turning northwards into Sutton Coldfield, and to turn that into a cycle lane, and also to allow only access from Florence Road going down southwards. So there's a number of reasons behind this, to try and reduce the volume of traffic going through, the speed, etc. But it's something which a lot of residents have asked for, and it's been around 2 years in asking now. And there's been some money that's been allocated through Birmingham City Council in terms of improvements that include cycle lanes. So we're trying to piggyback on that to try and get some funding and investment into the ward. So if you have any thoughts on that, please do email me directly, and I'll do what I can to fill you in on that. A slightly more contentious one is a further 5G mast, which is being proposed at a later point for Birmingham Road. Residents may remember that the 5G mast of, I think it's 25 metres or 20 metres or so, was successfully opposed on the junction of Wylde Green Road and Birmingham Road. So this was opposed. What they've now done is resubmitted it. I think it's 150 metres further south on Birmingham Road, which again is very frustrating. The potential location for this would be opposite the Gardens cul-de-sac on the other side of the road. So it's on the side of the road heading southwards into Birmingham city centre. So this is very new in its arrival. We'll be monitoring this. Nothing official has come forward on this as yet, but I just wanted to let residents know that this is, again, this is in the pipeline. Leslie, it seems like we're struggling with the slideshows.
Hang on, let me try again. Which slide would you like to see now?
So I've just covered planning 2, 3, 4 and 5. So on to planning 6, if you've got that one. If you haven't, it's okay. I think we can do with that. And
is that the mast?
So planning 6 is the one with the no stop sign. Anne, you've got your hand up.
I can't get it to share. Hold on.
Sorry, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Alex. Just to say with the HMO on Florence Road, I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of the neighbours put in their comments about the planning application, and they've put in a second one, and I don't think most people have been notified about it. So I didn't know if you were aware of that. They've factored in things that we had brought up. So neighbours need to. We're not notified of that apparently, so we're sort of finding out by default and need to start putting in things against it again, because I think it's going to be very disruptive on such a small residential street. Can I just say also on the turning, the one-way thing, I don't think we requested one way for 2 years. I think we're talking about traffic calming, which I suppose could be argued. But also the cycle route, it's not a cycle lane, is it? Because we had that conversation where it won't actually be the parking on that side as people come in from Chester Road.
Yes.
It's not a separate cycle lane, is it?
No, so
I don't know how they're not.
I'm just trying to bring the diagram up for residents to see. So it will form on the Birmingham Chester Road. It's a gateway. So there'll be a narrow access for a cycle. So it's a very, very small 2 meters cycle lane, and then the rest of it will be the large access. Thank you very much. So you may be able to see just where the no entry signs are. The bulk of it is access for vehicles coming southwards from Florence down to turn onto Chester Road, and there's a very small cycle gate, cycle lane. But yes, you're absolutely right on that. And thank you for jogging my memory around the changes to the planning application. So again, frustratingly, it seems it's a newer tactic where people would put in a planning application, find out what concerns and comments had been raised, and then submit an alteration or further planning application, making adjustments to that concerns raised. And in some ways it is a good way because it does take into consideration the concerns raised by local residents. But as you say, the notification the council are obliged to do is only, I think it's 2 houses to the left, 2 to the right and a few opposite. It's only for myself as a local councillor, I would then, if it's a contentious planning issue, be to write a letter, personally distribute it to 150 odd residents in a wide area just to let people know. But it is difficult to keep that information going, and I've got an email that I'm about to send to residents, and I know you've got a group chat specifically on those roads. So I know the word is getting out, but I will be submitting my further objections to that. As you say, a lot of it is for residents to make sure that they are aware, share the information, and stay vigilant to these changes.
May I just say, I don't know if you're aware that there have been some concerns around the consultation for the road changes or the potential road changes. I mean, there's a lot of debate about it.
The difficulty with the so letters have gone to some residents, letters haven't gone to others, but the difficulty because the boundary, so the southern side of Wardfield Road formally sits within Erdington Ward, and I think another half of Florence has a slightly different postcode, so it's very difficult for them to just segregate it. It's not like they can just send a letter out to Wardfield Road and do it by postcode. So I know some residents haven't received the notification letter, but as I say, I think the vast majority of residents know because of the efforts that we've done, 3 virtual meetings, I think it is now on this. The extension for planning concerns, anything raised after time will be fine. So I know the letters will be getting out and I've got no concerns on that. Okay.
Can I just ask whether there's any further consultation with the buses? I know that when we had the last team meeting, you talked about it maybe still going in one direction. I mean, we've been on the chat today.
The formal consultation, but as I say, we've got a preferred option now, and I think the bus company will be one of the people who'll be formally consulted on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks,
Fantastic. Alex. Okay, so if I can move on to the other 2 items. So item 6 on the Ramada Hotel. So just to try and give residents a bit of background on this, and I hope you will forgive me for talking for a little bit, as I haven't done already this evening, but I'll just give you a bit of background on the situation, hopefully to let residents know, and then I'll take any questions as best I can. It's started around the beginning of October, where Birmingham City Council, it seems, were notified by the Home Office that a potential change has been put in for the use. It was only from when residents started contacting me around potential individuals being seen walking up and down Penn's Lane, for example, that the issue was flagged to me. I then wrote to Birmingham City Council to find out for more information. And it seems that over a period of a week, very quickly, the Home Office have applied and got refugees into the Ramada Hotel over a very quick period of time. So this is without consultation to residents, with myself, with Birmingham City Council even. So it's just come in with an agreement. And this is part of Birmingham City Council's wider City of Sanctuary status, where we're obliged to take in and support refugees seeking asylum. So in terms of this matter, it does firmly sit within Andrew Mitchell's remit as the parliamentarian, because this is a Home Office matter. To let residents know about what's going on for my own information and what we've managed to glean from very questions asked, and again, working with Andrew on this to find out more information, is that we have roughly capacity, or they have capacity for up to 250. I believe there's around 239 at the moment. The vast majority are single males. And there are 2 families, I believe it's 3 females who are there. And in terms of what they are doing there, is that they are being permanently housed there. They're at free liberty to go back and forth. There is a 10 p.m. curfew. There is 24-hour security, and it is fully staffed at all times. What we've seen so far is that there's been no wider concerns in terms of any issues with rising criminality, any issues raised with police, etc. There's been nothing that's been notified to me around any concerns that's arisen from these people being housed at the Ramada Hotel. My understanding is that they are being housed there temporarily. It's a period of time, so we're trying to formally ascertain exactly if it's the same 240 who are going to be there, or is it going to be constantly changing in terms of the churn of people being having their applications put forward and then changing? We're trying to make sure in terms of their status, origins, language, etc., where they've come from, what their intentions are, their process within the asylum application process, how long they are intended to stay here. So all these are questions that we're asking, and we're trying to get more information. Of course, as soon as I have them, I'll do my best to let residents know. In terms of what the length of stay, it may be up to 6 months in terms for them to apply for an application. In the background, I understand that the landlords, so there's of course a private agreement between the landlord and the Home Office, which is why the change of use has been done privately between the owners of the Ramada Hotel and then the Home Office. So it's up to them in terms of how long they wish to keep the contract. But I understand there may have been a further potential change of use, potentially to housing developments, which I understand from councillors Dave Barry and Ken Wood over in Warmley Minworth. So the hotel frustratingly formally sits within Warmley Minworth. So I'm working closely with my two other city councillor colleagues, Ken and David, to try and get some more information on this further development. So this tries to give you, hopefully residents a bit of background on where we are at the moment. This is all the information I have, and of course I'm working closely with Andrew in terms of the updates. If anybody has concerns around safety, if you have any issues that you see, any of the thoughts on Home Office procedural policy, please do contact Andrew. You're very welcome to CC me in, but I'm obliged, because of course it's a Home Office matter. If any queries come to me, I'm obliged just to forward on to Andrew, because there's nothing that I can do from my level. On a slightly different note, I know the residents have been concerned around groups of people walking around, going to ASDA, etc. I, for my part, have seen and heard of no actual physical issues or burglaries or increasing crime or rates or anything like that. So I do want to try and send a better message of reassurance. My understanding is that from the people who operate the hotel is that the vast majority of them are very, very peaceful. They're either Muslim or Christian. There are a number of Christians there as well. They're very well supported. It's 24-hour monitored. So there are no concerns, and if there are, they will be raised, and of course it will affect their future applications. So there is an unwillingness for them to engage negatively with the local community. The last point I'd make before I open to questions is we have been working with, or I've been working on a personal level with some other organisations and charities and churches around the area and with Birmingham to see what we can to support them in terms of clothing. It turns out that during my meetings that I was having with the cabinet member and organisations who are running the hotel, is that the vast majority of them have literally just turned up with the clothes on their back and sandals, as in a t-shirt, and not even a phone or bag or anything else. So with that level of destitution, with the high numbers of people that are being housed there, there were some churches that approached me offering help, seeing what we could do. So I have been bringing people together to see what we can do to assist in terms of clothing in order to show Christian goodwill. And this is what I've been doing in terms of trying to support the hotel and people living there. I think it's important for us to be mindful that it is a distinction between the policy of them arriving here and how we arrived here in terms of crossing channel, Home Office, and all that issue, which understandably is very emotive. But there is also a humanitarian matter at hand right on our doorstep, where we have people who are now here. It is a reality, and I feel an obligation to do what I can where possible to help them at least alleviate that immediate emergency need in terms of it's winter, and if they have just got a t-shirt and sandals, I think it's inappropriate, and I would not be able to sleep easy at night just knowing that there are people literally on the doorstep living in those sorts of conditions. So that's all I wish to say on that matter. Does residents have any questions or comments that they wish to ask? Judy. Judy, if you're trying to speak, you're muted. Judy, if you're trying to speak, you're still muted, I'm afraid. Lee, do you have any? Do you have a point you wish to make?
I thank you for the way you actually present that to us, but we only wish that the Home Office had actually done so as well, and in the way that you've done it, and in the humane standard. But also, we've got to go to our MP to find out exactly what's happened there. They stepped over his head. And what happened a few days ago in Liverpool, we just have to be very careful, because you don't get a tummy ache after you ate. It's afterward. So we've got to look carefully here. We are all in sympathy with what is going on, but at least the residents have got a right to accept or to say no. We've actually got a lot of land here which has been taken to build houses, and to come right in the heart of it. There are residents, resident in my ward, Wylde Green, that is saying that they've got people coming into their backyard. And that is something that my colleague Sam and I will not stand for. So really, we don't want to go down that road and to say, well, okay, so and so. And if Sam is on, he can tell you this. If he's on tonight, I'm sure he can tell you the same thing. So it is too near to home for comfort. I understand clearly what you said, and we only wish that the Home Office did come to us and say the same as you, and I think the resident would have more sympathetic. But at the present moment, we don't want what happened down north to come up here. Thank you.
Yes, I think you made that point very well, Lee, and I thank you for that. In terms of what's happened in Liverpool, of course, you know, this is a very recent development, and I'm sure that's on the forefront of everyone's minds. So I feel an obligation to try and make sure and send that message of reassurance out to residents. If anybody sees anything, of course, please do email me directly. We'll follow that as a matter of urgency. On these points around consultation, so I think it's incredibly frustrating that, you know, residents, Birmingham City Council, were not consulted on this. Of course, if we were, we would have lobbied incredibly strongly against this coming into a very highly residential area in Sutton Coldfield. There are many other, we feel, more appropriate locations across the city. So that's what I would have done. But now that they are here, and of course they're a reality, then of course it's a slightly different step that I feel we should take. Marilyn, I can see that you're waving with your hand. You've just to mute yourself.
Oh, it's just to quickly say that I wondered whether the fact that the Ramada Hotel was a quarantine hotel, did they volunteer for that, and were they then on the Home Office radar for a suitable hotel?
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly, and that's what's happened. So during the whole of lockdown, I understand that the hotel has been quite difficult in terms of finances, understandably. So they were a huge loss-making organisation potentially before, and certainly during COVID, certainly not profitable. And then, of course, as you say, they became a COVID vaccination centre, I assume primarily for financial reasons. And then perhaps there's been an opportunity that they've taken in terms of this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Fantastic. Again, if anybody has any concerns, please do let me know. I am endeavouring to get more information and, of course, to support the people, but also to make sure that we get a firm deadline on when, how long they're going to be here, where they come from, etc. To answer the question on the chat around if they're refugees or asylum seekers, my understanding is, I stand to be corrected, but I think all asylum seekers are refugees, but not all refugees are asylums. So if they are seeking asylum, if they've got the application process, I think they then officially become refugees. So their status is at the moment undetermined. And that's where they are awaiting processing. Of course, it's a long process, unfortunately, with the Home Office. Okay. The final item which I just wanted to turn to before we go to the Vesey House is I'm aware there's a lot of waste issues, unfortunately, as well. I've been emailing the cabinet member on this to try and get an update for you this evening for the meeting. So he blames a lot of the issues around missed waste collections. I know even today, Station Road, half of Wylde Green Road, many of the roads this week have had missed collections. A lot of it is due to drivers being sick, and that's still what he says. My understanding from him is that because the green waste collection service is due to end either this week or next week, the drivers from that service will then be used to supplement the household and recycling selection service. So the service will improve over the next few months. But then, of course, we're then heading rapidly into winter season and all the issues in terms of flu and also snow, which may arise, and of course the Christmas break. So we're trying to again seek further information on that. I hope that everyone will accept my apologies for their missed waste if you have been affected. The advice is still to leave the bins out presented, and I know a lot of roads have had their roads done over the weekend, whilst they've been missed over the week. Does anybody have any questions on the waste issue? Judy.
Oh, yeah.
So there's you need to find a way of muting yourself. I'm afraid I am unable to do that from my end. Philip, would you like to come in while I'm waiting?
Yes. With when I raised the issue of leaves, I know that was on the road, but people have to get rid of them. Why is it that the green waste is stopped when the leaves are still there? It seems to be illogical to me.
Yes. Yes. Birmingham City Council for you, I believe. Yes, I had a resident who was very irate that they had to clean up the leaves from a Birmingham City Council tree and then pay for it to be taken away. I share the sympathies, but it's unfortunately it's kind of how council does it. And as you say, you cannot take that away in your own household; it will get rejected. If I can move on, I'm just mindful of everybody's time. I don't want to keep you all too late this evening. Item 7 is just an update on the Vesey House Café. So residents may be aware that the Vesey House that's on Wylde Green Road, just past the school, has put in an application for a community cafe on the right-hand side. So I think residents will appreciate the benefits and also disadvantages to this. So just urge everybody, if you have the opportunity, just to do your own research, perhaps go on the social media or Birmingham Mail, I believe have covered it. There is a planning application, which of course, if you're able to search for it and then post your comments as appropriate. If you have any direct concerns, do email me and I'll send you the links myself as well. Okay. Rapidly moving on to item 8. So this will be from the town councillors. So I believe we're joined by Leaford Allen, not Sam Hodgins, unfortunately, unless he's able to attend because he had a previous engagement. He was going to try and join us after the meeting. Leaford is one of our 2 town councillors for the Sutton Wylde Green Road. So anything you'd like to add, Lee?
Not really. It's I think you mentioned about the cafe, and as I can't elaborate on that for reasons. We don't know where it's actually going yet. It might come to us. And we are trying our best to do what we can for Wylde Green. Now we've got someone who's actually prepared to deal with the roads. We're going to deal with Florence Road around that side. There's other issues on Penn's Lane, which we've got to look at, and hopefully the new year we should see something done with the school and the traffic down there. We need to do something. We're going to do something about that before May, hopefully. So we're trying to do Penn's Lane for the school because it seems as if, and I think it will come from the town council. It will have to come from the town council because of the hardship from the city council. And we will be trying our best to do some, I will have to go back to Alex, give it to Alex to do, as he is from the city council, to have a look at and to join with us to see into areas, or if anyone see areas where we can put some bins or park benches, let Alex know, or myself or Sam, and we will try to do that. As far as Wylde Green is concerned, I think I mentioned before, and it was just the annoyance from, but we can't go into that now because it's no fault of either councillor, so we can't argue about it, what Alex mentioned about the hotel. And that is what I've got to say about Wylde Green. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. So we've got also Town Councillor and Sutton Mayor Terry Wood, who is a resident of Wylde Green, but a Town Councillor for Warmley Minworth. Terry, would you like to come in?
I just wanted to mention in Wylde Green, the transfer of the allotments from Birmingham into Sutton Coldfield, and the boulevard allotments will be on the first tranche. And I believe the surveyor for the land is going in there tomorrow to look at the outstanding issues and the assets on that land. But this year, I think most of the allotments, if not all, in Sutton Coldfield will be transferred from Birmingham to Sutton.
Okay, good.
Okay. And a wider town council level, I know that you've done some really good work with the Warmley Memorial, but also there is the regeneration plan in the town council, in the town centre, which I believe is gathering pace as well. Terry, did you want to speak on that?
Well, the next piece of land to transfer will be Vesey Gardens by Trinity Church. We're also looking at King Edward Square. We're looking at assets we can transfer and improve. What we're trying to do is to invest in these assets in the town. I think they've been sorely neglected for some years. Sutton Park being the major one, but it's so much money needed, we can't do it. We're looking as a trust for that one.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the town councillors? Okay. So this leads us nicely on to the last item on the agenda, so other matters. I've covered everything that I wanted to raise in the bulk of the meeting. Pat or Terry, do you have anything that you wish to add from the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum perspective? And if residents have any questions, please do raise your hands.
Well, I think you mentioned at the start of the meeting about the Christmas tree in Emmanuel Church. Subject to the delivery of the tree, we hope to set the lights off on Sunday the 28th, about 7 o'clock, 7:30, which is, I think the Christmas tree is another asset for Wylde Green.
Thank you, Terry, and I appreciate all that you do on that. You were a constant campaigner every year to try and get a tree, and I know that we've campaigned to try and get a permanent Christmas tree, and you do the fundraising as well with the baubles for a very good local cause. Marilyn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you again. I have put this as a written question, but I just wondered about the unsightly sort of flower bed plant spaces outside of Sainsbury's and around the lanes. Generally, the planting in Wylde Green is absolutely lovely. And if you look at the other side of the road, you know, there are the big pots, but it's so scruffy around Sainsbury's and going up to the end of the car, you know, where the car park starts. Is that who's responsible for that, and why are they not winter pansies or something? Who generally does that?
I can answer that question. It's on private land, and we're told not to touch it. I'm the Sutton in Bloom man. Sorry, Marilyn. I'm the Sutton in Bloom man, so I sort of arrange for the hanging baskets, the floor up, the freestanding planters and the rail planters. We got the RHS coming next year because it's Sutton in Bloom again next year, so we want to make the best for our town. What's happened in Mayor Green, we've got a similar example within the Mayor Green shopping area, but some of the residents have taken to guerrilla gardening, tidied up the raised beds and put plants in. So it might be a suggestion for people in the middle of the night to go and do the same thing at home. But I couldn't possibly suggest that.
An eco-terrorist action, isn't it? And Terry, thank you for all that you're doing. You've been a big champion for the... Sorry, Marilyn.
No, I was just going to say that the owners are happy to install parking charges, but they can't keep it looking tidy. But anyway, thanks for the suggestion, Terry. Thank you for letting me ask the question.
Not at all. I just want to thank Terry. I mean, every year he's a big campaigner for across the whole of the royal town for planters. You did, is it the wild wheat that you campaigned for as well in different areas, and then we dug areas up outside the Windley Leisure Centre, but certainly the hanging planters and the just look beautiful every year.
The big emphasis has been on wildflower planting on the major highways into Sutton. I don't say we've done it on Birmingham Road, but every other one we've done it. And of course, the Commonwealth Games are coming next year, so there will be special efforts along Monmouth Drive and Stonehouse Road, etc., to improve that area.
Thank you. The vast majority of that, unfortunately, fits outside the ward, as we've had a good look to see what assets could be utilised by the town council. Unfortunately, it's quite limited. So Wormley's got, for example, Jones's Wood, Pond, Stevens Pond, for example, that are areas that we can try and get some outside investment in, but seems quite limited within Wylde Green. If anybody has any suggestions, please do let me know. Very happy to kick them upstairs. Pete, you've got your hand up. Pete, if you just unmute yourself, please. Pat, do you mind if I turn to you while we're waiting?
No, just a point about the stars that we're going to be hanging on the Christmas tree in the Emmanuel Church. They're going to be available at the lighting ceremony, and Terry, of course, is going to be throwing the switch for that. But Pat and I are going to have a table outside Costa's in Wylde Green tomorrow morning, where we'll also be selling them. So if you haven't got, you can't get to the lighting ceremony, then they will be available outside Costa tomorrow morning after 10 o'clock-ish probably. And they're also on sale at Pat's house in Wylde Green, in Green Lanes. Just a thought, if people wanted to buy them and put a little message onto them in order to put on the tree when it's installed.
Perhaps we should say, Pat, that it's for the homeless. The money raised goes towards.
Well, yes, but I did mention that before. But yes, just to reiterate that, the money goes towards homeless people. Street Link, which is a charity that houses and does their best for homeless people. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Remind me about that. Yes, it's a very good cause.
So Ian Johnson's asked a question around the cinema just outside the ward to the north of Jockey Road. So that's the Empire Cinema. They have proposals to convert their car park into housing. So I'm just going to pop the consultation that they've set up. So McCarthy and Stone have set up a residents consultation. The consultation period is due to end on the 23rd of November. And it's a dedicated website which they've set up, which is informal, but of course it helps form their views on that. Because it doesn't sit within the Wylde Green ward, I will be commenting as a resident and as a city councillor for the city, and I'm in opposition to it. I believe most of the other town councillors are as well, but I'll just be submitting my comments as a local resident, and I encourage other residents to make up your own mind in terms of where you feel on that. But I've got no official view on that because, as I say, it does fit outside the ward. And did you want to try and come in?
I must have forgotten, but can you just remind us when the lights are going on? Is it Sunday, did you say? At what time? At Emmanuel? The tree lights.
It's Sunday the 28th, about 7 to 7:30, somewhere around there.
There's going to be a church service beforehand. Yeah, you don't have to attend, of course. It's not going to be terribly religious, apparently, but it's a church service from 6:30 till 7:30. Then at 7:30, we'll all troop out, and I think Terry's going to give a reading at the service. Are you, Terry?
That's correct. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I get all the good jobs.
And the organist, oh, I can't remember his name now, but the organist is going to be there as well. So it's going to be a lovely occasion, and we'll step outside around the tree, still singing it with some Christmassy music, I think. Terry's going to throw the switch to illuminate the tree. And then there should be mulled wine and mince pies back in the church. Ooh. Yes. Got to organise that still, but yes, that's the plan. That's the master plan for that. So, and that's on the 28th. Is it 28th?
28th.
Yes, yeah. Sunday the 28th of
Thank
November.
You very much.
Okay. Fantastic. My wife just bought me little mini mince pies as well. I'm missing my supper. They've already had their supper, so I'm getting started on the mince pies, start getting to the festive season. But in terms of mince pies and mulled wine, if that doesn't entice anybody to pop along and see Terry do his singing, no doubt, singing recital in the evening, to get us all into the spirit. Does anybody have any other questions or comments that they want to raise? Okay. Can I finally just take a moment just to thank everybody? I know that our two presenters aren't here, but Leslie from Birmingham City Council has kindly assisted her her evening time to help run, set up, advertise the meeting. I'm very grateful to her, as well as each one of you as well for taking your time to show an interest to the ward, but also for sharing your thoughts. I'm sure everybody appreciates it's a large area to get around, and as a single councillor, I don't have the benefit of other city councillor colleagues. So it's a large ward, and I very much appreciate and value everybody's thoughts and inputs. It does help me inform me for what to do and what's going on in your local areas and where people's views are as well. Appreciate that there's a lot of contentious issues coming up as well. If anybody has any concerns that they don't want to share publicly, please do share and email me directly. A final plug as well for the Wylde Green News Facebook page. So this is a platform that I controlled. I'm trying to use to get local information out, for example, road closures, emergency information, but also advertise events like the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum we're putting on. So please do join if you're able to and share the link. I do want to try and grow it into a news platform just to assist attendance for meetings like this and to let residents know of contentious planning issues to try and gather support in opposition or support for various things. Okay. That's all I have to say. I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody wants to have a private chat afterwards, but otherwise, can I finally thank everybody for your time this evening. I wish you all a very good evening, and if I don't see you before Christmas, a very Merry Christmas.
Alex, can we thank you as well for hosting the meeting and for all the information you've given us? It's excellent.
You're very kind, thank you. I appreciate I've done a lot of talking and there's a lot of information. There is a lot going on, and it is a lot of work, and I'm very grateful for you, Terry and Pat, and the Wylde Green Neighbourhood Forum for all the support that you give as well. It is somewhat a lonely job doing this as a single councillor, and I'm very grateful to Pat especially for the insights in potential planning issues. It is immensely helpful. Okay.
Thanks, Alex.
Great stuff. Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, Alex. That was very comprehensive. That meeting was great.
Thank you, Alex. And I would like to also thank the Pat and Terry and that beautiful lady who actually dealt with the Wylde Green Pub. She's done a very good job, and I thank Pat and them to go through all the plans.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Them, but the Wylde Green Pub has been well handled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Have a lovely evening all.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.